What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and I'm back with another video. This time it is the review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014. So I gave you that overview where I was explaining some of the fundamental issues with this new Ninja Turtles idea, this film, just on a conceptual level, and then looking at the designs. It really doesn't move past that. You got a bunch of turtle-like figures with that lack the personality that we have come to expect from the Turtles as an entity. You know what I mean? A lot of reviewers have said what they had to say, and I'm hearing a lot of the same things. The movie is not 100% all fucked up. It's not all crap. It's just lacking in some key areas. Well, here's the thing. For some of us, and I'm going to give you some background, our perspective doesn't have anything to do with nostalgia. It's purely having to do with what's sitting in front of us. And I already told you, they failed on the basic look. They don't look like the Ninja Turtles. They look like some weird version of the Turtles that would have been offered in the Turtles collection when we were kids. Because how they had super mutants, and they had, the military turtles and the Star Trek turtles. These look like Neanderthal turtles, despite what anyone wants to say. They don't look like they were turtles that were exposed to humans that started to mutate and gain human characteristics. They look like turtles or reptiles of some sort that were already mutants, and they're further mutating away from whatever they were, like the next mutation, Ninja Turtles, which is really bad. But anyway, you already can tell that, and I've already told you about that. As far as the movie goes, here's the background I'm going to give you on myself with Ninja Turtles. Growing up, I had a whole ton of Ninja Turtle stuff. The cartoon was cool. I saw the cartoon. I watched those first 5 episodes, and this is where I differ from a lot of people when it comes to enjoying the Ninja Turtles and the various incarnations. When I first saw Ninja Turtles, I liked those first 5 episodes, up to when I think it was Baxter, or when they fight the giant version of Krang. And then the show just paled in comparison, or up to the neutrinos. And then the show kind of just paled in comparison to those. There was nothing in the show that was as interesting as those episodes. You know what I'm saying? And it frustrated me. So I went and I sought out the comics, and the comics were where it was at, and I stuck with the comics, and I collected the toys. And then the movie completely put me over to a whole nother level. And I was subscribed. It's probably the only thing I was ever subscribed to, except for maybe my comics, was Ninja Turtle magazine. My mom got me a subscription, so I got to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, which was cool because the book didn't, from what I remember, they didn't go overboard on trying to explain to you how everything was done. They just showed you the Turtles doing other stuff besides, the actors in the suits doing other stuff behind the scenes, as opposed to showing you the actor with the turtle head off. You know what I'm saying? So it felt like the Turtles were real. That was the best version of the Turtles, period, on screen. That was the most real we're ever gonna get. And for people to say, oh, it sucks because they're suit actors, just because that the way they achieved that look was via the suit, fuck you guys. It's that bullshit hipster mentality that makes shit like this make $200 million in its opening week or something like that. Its first week. That makes no sense. This movie, so before I jump into that, so the first movie was the big thing for me. The second movie was alright. It had better martial arts, or a little bit more martial arts, because they would take out their weapons and then put them away and then beat the hell out of people with their bare hands, which was strange. And then the third movie is what made me stop, and I just didn't give a shit. But I watched the cartoons that came out afterwards. The 2000s, the early 2000 cartoon was awesome. until they got to the Lost. There was the 2 seasons that were just garbage. The one where they were in the future, and then the Lost episode or season where they had the amulets of power or whatever, and they had all the weird paint and stuff on there. I just wasn't feeling that stuff. It was as if they went way too far in a different direction, and I wasn't really into it. It still felt like Ninja Turtles. It just was it was going into the territory that I didn't really dig. The 2006, I think it is, movie, the CGI movie, I dug that. A lot of people didn't dig it because they feel like the Turtles should still be cracking jokes and shit like that, and I didn't have a problem with that. I felt like they were growing up, and that was the point of the movie, was to show how much they've grown up. And they assumed that because the Turtles grew up, or the audience grew up, the Turtles should be growing up too. So it just felt like it was logical to some degree. Granted, it was an off kind of story, because for people who don't read the comics, they would never ever know that the Turtles actually dealt with other stuff besides the foot and all that and whatnot. But, I enjoyed it. It had some really cool sequences, cool fights, some cool heartfelt moments, and some cool, what's the word for it? Just banter between the Turtles. I dug it. I mean, Raphael and Leo's issues were kind of hard to watch, but because it was like, damn, these guys are gonna kill each other, or Raph wants to kill him. Like, what the fuck? But anyway, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed everything up to the first 3 episodes of the Nick cartoon, and then I couldn't get into the Nick cartoon because it seemed a little bit more childish than what I remember the Turtles being, and they were always kind of immature, but this felt childish. Now we come to this, and this movie's made $200 million off of a hackney script. This was a corporate decision, this film, because there's no need for us to reboot, redesign, recreate, redo Ninja Turtles when there is a reboot on television right now. This is one of the most corporate films that have ever been made, and it turned around and made Transformers money. It's making Transformers money. This toppled Guardians of the Galaxy at the box office. This is what's wrong with the movie going public these days. They don't know shit about shit. They know what they don't like. I think me and Prime were talking about this, and he said the same. He said Movie Bob pointed that out. He said, or he quoted King of the Hill. Hipsters and a lot of people tend to know what they don't like, but they don't know what they do like, what they want. Yeah, they know what they don't like, but they don't know what they want. And this is an example of that. You want this to be good, so everybody went to go see it. It wasn't quite what you thought it was going to be, but you're going to, tell people to go see it anyway? I don't get it. Basically, this movie made a whole bunch of money off of its name, and a lot of kids worldwide are going to go see it, and they're going to say, they're going to find things to like. They're going to try to find things to like, because like I said, like others, have said before, the movie is not 100% fail. There are moments of greatness, but it's not a good movie. It's a bad movie with some okay moments in it, This movie should clearly not have made $200 million. I'm sorry, it shouldn't have. But, this is one of those examples of the people wanting their slop, and they got their slop. The plot's real simple. Take everything you know about the Turtles and throw it out the way. Flush it down the toilet. Because they're going to change it. They've changed just about everything. Some people say the changes are minute. I think they're big. Some people have compared them to an IDW run. It must be one that I didn't read. The only IDW run that I read, the Turtles were human, and so was Splinter years ago. They were his 4 sons. And Shredder wanting Splinter's wife, or wanting revenge for a time that Splinter kind of embarrassed him as he tried to advance on Splinter's, at the time I think she was his girlfriend. Later on he got revenge and he killed all of them, and before they died, Splinter was like, we won't get our revenge in this life, but we will get it in the next. And then they're reincarnated as turtles and a rat, and then they're exposed to the mutagen, and the Foot Clan is involved, and then we go from there. That's the new origin I remember. If this movie had that origin, this movie would be worth the 200 million plus that it's making right now in the box office. Instead, they pulled an Amazing Spider-Man, where it's all destiny. They were all friends with April. April was a little kid. Her father was a scientist who was partnered with one of the main villains in the movie, Eric Sachs. She used to treat the Turtles and Splinter like they were her pets, even though they were the lab animals, you know, that they experimented on with various mutagens to try and create an antidote for a viral weapon that they were gonna use that was being developed by Sachs and them, who you find out Sachs was raised by the Shredder. Anyway, you know, years down the line, the Turtles have mutated. Splinter has raised them. He trained them in ninjutsu because he found a book about ninjutsu and figured that would be a good manual to train, you know, or help him raise these kids. You have to know something first before you can teach it to other people. You can't read the book and train at the same time. Like, come on, man. Ninjutsu. And then, like, it's funny because when you see the Turtles fight, they're doing XMA. They're doing all the flashy flips and kicks and spins and throwing their swords and their size. And it's not ninjutsu, it's all XMA. It's all flashy shit that looks nice in front of the camera, but it doesn't really have... It's karate. It's extreme karate. So they're not even ninjas anymore. They do some ninja-like stuff, because the first couple times, like during the first half of the film, the first or 30 minutes of the film, you see the Turtles kind of stealthily doing things where you don't actually see them. You just get the idea that we know it's them. You get the idea someone is doing this stuff from behind the shadows, you know? It's kind of frustrating because what they do now is with this new plot, they put all the emphasis on Megan Fox's April O'Neil. And we all figured this is what was going to happen because she's the only, she's one of the only well-known, and it's kind of sad that this is the case, she's one of the well-known actors in the film, if you can even call her an actor. She does do a decent job with what she was given in that first half because she's the reporter who, you know, is given the fluff pieces. And she doesn't really want to do fluff stories. She wants to do real, you know, journalism. She wants to go out and hunt down stories that matter. And you kind of get that from her, and Megan Fox does a good job. It's just that after the movie starts going, they forget about all that. Will Arnett is not funny in this film. It's kind of strange because if you watched him in Arrested Development or you watched the Lego movie, you clearly can see what good writers and what a good director can do with this guy. But besides that, I don't know what to tell you. It's, oh man, it's just, the whole movie is kind of joyless, except for like a handful of scenes where the Turtles kind of, it's like the directors and the writers, they remember the kind of fun that the original Turtles used to have. All the Turtles in this have very bland versions of their personality. Michelangelo is clearly the one they want to push and feed down your throat like back in the day. Leonardo is very one note. Raphael is extremely one note. He's just, I'm the brute. It's not as bad as the 2006 film, but it's still kind of bad. He had more personality in there. He had emotions. In this, it's just literally, you know, fight all the time, except for weird, awkward moments where he gets kind of emotional with his brothers, and I don't understand why. Donatello, no personality. He just looks like the nerd because he is the nerd and you're supposed to take that at face value, nothing more. Splinter, ugly as fuck. I don't understand why they had to make him so gross. And I mean, I know rats are gross, but that's not the appeal of the Turtles, you know what I mean? But he's real gross. His fighting style was awesome in this. He used his tail. He was real agile and fast. Shredder was like, overcompensating for everything. Once he started moving in his suit, it was as if the suit didn't weigh anything. So the motion capturing was nice. I mean, he was doing really cool moves that are hard to pull off, but doing it in a giant metal suit should have looked like there was weight to it or some kind of... There was no weight. There was no nothing. It just was a guy doing moves. It just... The movie just felt lazy. The plot kind of gets underway when there's an attack on the lair after the Turtles meet April, bring her to the lair. The Turtles are talking to her about, stuff because reasons, and the Foot Clan figures out where she is via some kind of something that was given to her by Sax, and then Shredder comes in. There's a cool fight between him and Splinter, and it's weird. Most of Shredder's scenes are chopped up in a strange way because things will happen and then Shredder will just walk away. He'll just leave, and then it cuts to something completely unrelated, and you're like, huh? Shredder himself, you never actually see Oroku Saki, and he doesn't have the old story that he had before. The Foot Clan are not ninjas in this. They're just soldiers. They're foot terrorists because they call themselves the Foot because they trample on people. What? Really? You would think that somebody's son came up with that explanation for the Foot. Anyway, no police. The police don't do shit in this film. No one does anything to fight the Foot, quote unquote, and it's got that same vibe that the Amazing Spider-Man had, where everything leads back to Oscorp. Well, it's the same thing here. Everything leads back to Eric Sachs, you know what I mean, and April and her dad, who all work together. So it's like there's no payoff. The big climactic, there's a big set piece action sequence. Where the Turtles are sliding down a hill. It's not even a hill. It's like they're sliding down a mountain, the side of a mountain, in the snow, outside of New York. It's like summer in New York, in the city, but then when you go up to where Eric Sachs lives, it's snowing, and it's enough snow that they can have this big snow chase in the snow where Vernon's driving a semi and the Turtles are sliding around on their shells, and you can tell it's kind of like the way G.I. Joe Retaliation had that zipline scene. That was the thing that they spent all their money on. This was the scene that they spent all their money on, and it's strange when you watch the movie. It feels like the whole chase is all CGI except for maybe like a couple interior shots of the semi. But if you saw the behind-the-scenes thing that came on TV, you find out that most of what you saw, a lot of the sliding truck and all that stuff, was practical with blue and green screen kind of in it, So like the interior of the truck, of the trailer on the truck, in some shots was green screen. Or blue screen, whichever one. I can't remember how they did it. I just remember it was a screen. A lot of the shots when they hit stuff was actually that was real. It was practical. The only things that were fake were the Turtles themselves and some of the foot soldiers. So anyway, after that, there's a climactic, quote unquote. It's climactic because they tell us, and because we know what a movie is. A climactic end battle between the Turtles and Shredder, and they can't beat Shredder. Big surprise. They get their asses whooped. Shredder beats them up on top of a building while he's trying to let out this virus, and I don't know, the whole thing was just stupid. I'm sorry. It was really hard for me to keep my attention with this. And it's funny because people diss movies like Expendables and The Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they say those movies are corporate. They say that Expendables is a dumb action movie. This was dumb. This was dumb even for a kid's movie. And it was gross in some ways. Like, Michelangelo immediately says when he meets April for the first time, when they all meet her, he's like, dude, my shell's getting tight. Like, dude, I don't want to hear that from a Ninja Turtle. That's gross. I'm a dude and that's gross, Yes, Megan Fox is hot, but certain things you don't want to hear from certain characters. Like, Michelangelo's one note most of the movie. He had more personality in a cartoon than he does in a movie that was written by, bona fide, writers. It was like 3 people wrote this film or something. 2 or 3 guys wrote this film. Really? And you couldn't get the characterization of the Turtles right? It's just weird, man. Like, the movie's lazy in parts that just don't make sense. But then, like I said, there were some genuine parts where you're like, wow, they remember what the Turtles were like back in the day. Like the elevator scene everyone has seen. yeah, they feel like the turtles in that scene where they're taking the elevator up to the roof of the building, and it's quiet and they're bored and they're kind of breathing hard, and then Michelangelo starts beating on his nunchucks and makes a beat, and then Raphael joins in, and then Donatello joins in making sounds, and then Leonardo starts making sounds, and then they just start jamming out like it's like they're really enjoying themselves. And then when they get to the roof, they just turn it off and they're like, ah, and they start running to attack Shredder, which is pretty cool. And it feels like something that the Turtles we all know would do, even the ones on Nick right now. And I've heard a lot of people say it's a nostalgia thing. It's not nostalgia. It's just that these are characters that have been fleshed out. What is this, the 30th anniversary? 25th or 30th anniversary of the Ninja Turtles. By now, everyone knows what the Turtles act like. All of us that were kids when they first showed up, we're adults now. Our kids know what the Turtles are supposed to act like. And these guys didn't really act like them, except for in some certain scenes. The action, whenever you got to see certain attacks, you could see that the person performing the attack was seasoned, and they were, really gymnastic, and they're really good with their gymnastics and acrobatics, and they could do some flashy stuff. But the way the action was shot, it was like the camera was fighting with the martial arts. You didn't really get to see everything. It's like, instead of just putting the camera down, tracking the action, the camera is doing all kinds of other shit against the action, and then like in scenes when things are happening stationary, like two people talking or something like that, the camera keeps on rolling off to the side. I mean, it's shit that when I was in film class, like video class, we would get in trouble if we did these kind of things, you know what I mean? And I know they're big Hollywood, whatever, everybody's gonna ride their dicks, whatever, but there's some fundamentals that are missing in this film. And it's weird because Jonathan Liebesman did Wrath of the Titans, and I enjoyed Wrath of the Titans. It had like energy, and it felt like it could have fit in God of War, like the universe of God of War, because you could tell that's what inspired this change in format. The first Clash of the Titans was really kind of meh. The second one, it was like, hey, we have some money, and we have a little bit more freedom, and we have some inspiration, and that was cool. And then you see this, and it's like, man, it's missing so much of what made the other thing great. The other thing had some imagination. The characterization was on point. Perseus actually looked like Perseus, from Clash of the Titans that we remember. They had what's the dude's name? Sam Worthington. They had him actually grow his hair out, and he actually looked kind of, he had the mullet that Perseus had back in the day in the old Clash of the Titans. And just the action was better, the pacing was better, everything was better. This, I can't tell you how much of the plot just felt rushed, and you could tell they tried to rewrite this. They rewrote and then re-edited all the Shredder stuff, because there were parts where whenever they showed Sax, that this was leading to him putting on the Shredder suit and going and doing whatever he did. But then they add this shadowy figure with scars that you never see his face, who is supposed to be the guy who raised Sax, who is the Shredder. And it's kind of like, really, guys? So Shredder, you don't know who he is, you don't know much about him, you don't know his motivations, he does want to unleash a virus onto New York so that Sax can gain money by being the person with the antidote. But don't you think people would be like, where'd you get the antidote from? I don't know, there was just a lot of stupid stuff. It was bad. It was literally Amazing Spider-Man with the Ninja Turtles. That's the other thing. You could take the Turtles out and insert anybody, and they could deal with it. There was nothing uniquely Ninja Turtles about this film. The Turtles have a certain kind of charm. This thing did exactly what all the missteps that we've been seeing have done. They took the New York from those movies, which was, it was a character, it had a certain charm and style to it, and they made it just regular New York. That generic New York where it's like they filmed it in Canada or some shit, but we're supposed to believe it's New York because they say so. It's that kind of thing, or they filmed parts of it in California, but they're going to digitally put certain scenes or pieces of, or landmarks and shit from New York in that, where they filmed it. It just felt generic. And a lot of people, I'm amazed at how many people enjoyed it, And then, people like me and Movie Bob and a handful of other people who are going to we're straight up judging this based on what we saw, the nostalgia and the ties to the previous incarnations of the Turtles. That's all secondary. I'm telling you what I saw first. It didn't hold my attention. The cartoon did a better job. And that's 30 minutes. This was like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, an hour and a half, something like that. I can't remember. But it goes by fairly fast. It's a lot of nothing, I wasn't impressed by any of the fights. I wasn't impressed by any character in the film at all. I wasn't impressed by the music. The music was extremely generic. And, CGI Turtles I don't think was the best idea. I know a lot of people hate the folks who like practical effects, but honestly, because the Turtles were CGI, you didn't really have choreographed fight scenes. You had scenes where the Turtles showed up, they did something, you had the reactions that were filmed of the human, real characters that were getting hit, which was constantly them getting pulled. They do it via a pulley system where they yank them back and they go flying. So you constantly had characters being hit so hard they go flying. The Turtles were brutes. They weren't ninjas. Ninjas are supposed to be small and, kind of stealthy, very stealthy, and kind of, what's the word? Technique oriented. The techniques is what makes them appear powerful. You know what I mean? They're very methodical. And those are the things that are supposed to, kind of make you interested in seeing what these guys can do. Whenever the time came for them to do their ninja stuff, it was just like a giant punch or a hard kick, or, Donatello would spin his bow around, but it didn't even hit somebody and they go flying. It was just, the whole idea of them being big didn't really serve a purpose, and that bothers me. I like when changes in a design or in a story serve a purpose, and actually serve a good purpose, It seems like a lot of the changes in this were made just to be made, and they didn't really serve a purpose. There were a lot of plot holes, but you expect that by now in these kind of films. Supposedly April's dad died in a fire. You find out Sax shot him before the fire burnt everything down. You're like, wow, really? Previously you told us that there was a fire and that's how the dad died. Now you choose to add in that Sax also shot him while he died in the fire? Okay. It just was too much. Too many cliches, too many generic things, too little personality. It's the biggest problem with this film. It didn't have enough personality. I was very bored throughout most of the film. Whoopi Goldberg is in the film for like 2 scenes and then she disappears. Karai is in here, but she's just kind of a battlefield general or commander, and she doesn't do anything. She has no training. There's nothing special about her. She just has the red streaks in her hair, and that's it. If you've read the comics, especially the newer IDW stuff, the stuff done by Santolouco, every character is done so awesomely, and it's steeped in this very nuanced ninja history, with the Foot Clan. So it's not like the Turtles are the only people who have dealt with the Foot Clan, and it's not like the Foot Clan only exists right now. These guys have been around for a long time, and they're bad news. They were bad news even back in the day. And, the Turtles are having to deal with this new incarnation of the Foot Clan. Shredder is very powerful. He's mystical. He doesn't use a fucking robotic suit a la Transformers, or Iron Man or something. And stuff like that is what makes this dumb. Like, if he can kick their asses just with his basic, body, just the way he is, why would he need a suit? It would be more interesting to see him use his martial arts against these giant brutes and actually floss and make them look stupid. But apparently Jonathan Liebsman and Michael Bay and all those folks don't think that martial arts allows you to become that strong compared to other people, you know? So, I don't know. The lack of imagination, the lack of character that this film had just made this a pass for me. I didn't enjoy it. I wish it wasn't made. These kind of movies just need to stop. This is a corporate film, for those of you who don't know what that is. So anyway, I'm Strident. It's my story and I'm sticking to it. Peace outside.